The richest woman in Tennessee once built the largest mansion the state had ever seen. Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. In 1817, Adelicia Hayes was born in Nashville to a well-to-do family. Her father, Oliver Bliss Hayes, was a prominent lawyer and Presbyterian minister originally from South Hadley, Massachusetts. He was also a cousin of Rutherford B. Hayes, the man who would eventually become the 19th President of the United States. The family was well connected, well educated, and comfortable, but not fabulously wealthy. That would come later. In 1839, at the age of 22, Adelicia married Isaac Franklin. He was 50 years old, nearly 3 decades her senior, and he was one of the wealthiest men in the South. The source of his wealth, however, was deeply grim. Franklin had made his fortune as one half of Franklin and Armfield, a slave trading firm that had been identified as the largest in the antebellum South. By the time Franklin retired in 1835, he had amassed a fortune approaching $1 million, an almost incomprehensible sum for that era. In April of 1846, Isaac fell gravely ill while at one of his Louisiana plantations and passed away, reportedly of a stomach ailment. Then just 6 weeks after Isaac's death, 2 of their children also died. It was devastating, but the financial reality of Adelicia's new situation was staggering in a different way. Under the terms of Isaac's will, she inherited Fairview Plantation, 7 Louisiana cotton plantations encompassing roughly 8,700 acres, more than 50,000 acres of undeveloped land in Texas, stocks, bonds, and approximately 750 enslaved people. Overnight, the 29-year-old widow became the wealthiest woman in Tennessee and one of the wealthiest in the entire South. The will, however, came with a catch. Isaac had stipulated that if Adelicia remarried, their home, known as Fairview, would be converted into a school. It was in essence a financial penalty for moving on. Adelicia, as it turned out, was not the sort of woman who accepted such terms lying down. In 1847, while attending a ball, Adelicia met Joseph Alexander Smith Acklen, a lawyer, a veteran, a federal official, and a member of one of Alabama's most established families. He was 31 years old, and he was apparently quite taken with the wealthy young widow from Nashville. They were engaged quickly, but Adelicia, burned once by a will designed to punish her for remarrying, was not about to make the same mistake twice. Just days before the wedding, she presented Joseph with a prenuptial agreement. The document stipulated that Adelicia would remain the sole owner of and final authority over all the property she brought into the marriage. In an era when a woman's assets legally transferred to her husband upon marriage, this was a remarkable, even radical legal maneuver. Joseph took on the role of managing the plantations, and by 1860 he had tripled the value of Adelicia's already enormous estate. At their peak, the Acklens were reportedly the wealthiest family in both Tennessee and Louisiana simultaneously. Construction of their dream house, known as Belmont, began around 1850, and the initial house was completed by 1853. The estate sat on about 180 acres of what was then countryside outside of Nashville proper, and the mansion was positioned at the very top of the hill, a deliberate choice that gave the house commanding views of the surrounding landscape and, in the distance, downtown Nashville itself. The original structure was built in the Italian villa style, a fashionable architectural idiom of the mid-19th century that evoked the sunlit grandeur of the Italian countryside. The design featured covered porches and balconies wrapped around the exterior, fitted with ornate cast iron railings and trim. These weren't purely decorative, they served the practical purpose of shading the windows from Tennessee's brutal summer sun. The house was, after all, a summer residence, and keeping it cool was a genuine engineering challenge. Crowning the roofline was a 10-foot octagonal cupola that served double duty. Practically, it functioned as a ventilation shaft, drawing hot air up and out of the house during the sweltering summer months, but was also used as an observatory. A 105-foot water tower, designed by the architect Adolphus Hyman, supplied the property with running water, another amenity that placed Belmont well ahead of most contemporary homes. But the crowning architectural achievement of Belmont came in 1859, when the Acklens hired Adolphus Hyman to dramatically enlarge and remodel the house. With Hyman's additions complete, Belmont now contained 36 rooms spread across nearly 20,000 square feet, with an additional 8,500 square feet of service space. The family living quarters included 10 bedrooms, 2 dining rooms, a library, and numerous parlors for both family use and formal entertaining. And entertain they did. Adelicia hosted a grand ball, always timed to coincide with a full moon. so the guests arriving by carriage could see the mansion illuminated in all its moonlit glory as they approached up the hill. When the Civil War broke out in 1861, Tennessee sided with the Confederacy, and the Acklens, whose entire fortune was built on enslaved labor and cotton production, found themselves directly in the path of the gathering storm. Nashville fell to Union forces in February 1862, making it the first major Confederate city captured during the war. The Confederacy had adopted a policy of burning cotton to prevent it from falling into Union hands, which meant the Acklens stood to lose their most valuable assets regardless of which side would ultimately prevail. At Adelicia's urging, Joseph returned to Louisiana in early 1862 to personally oversee the plantations and protect the cotton crop. It was, in the broadest sense, a mission to salvage the family fortune. Joseph managed the properties as best he could under increasingly chaotic wartime conditions, but the strain took its toll. In September 1863, Joseph suffered a carriage accident in which his vehicle plunged into a bayou, forcing him to walk home soaking wet. According to family tradition, the exposure led to a fatal fever. Joseph died just days later at 47 years old. Adelicia secretly negotiated agreements with both the Union and Confederate authorities to allow approximately 2,800 bales of her cotton, a massive quantity, to be shipped from Louisiana to Liverpool, England, where it was sold for approximately $960,000 in gold. In December 1864, as Union and Confederate forces marshaled for the Battle of Nashville, Union General Thomas J. Wood encamped 13,000 troops on the Belmont grounds for roughly 2 weeks. As much as Adelicia tried to maintain the status quo, the post-war world was a different place. The end of slavery meant the end of the forced labor system that had generated the Acklens' wealth. The cotton plantations could no longer operate on their old model, and the economic foundations of Adelicia's fortunes began to shift. In the early 1880s, she began selling off properties, starting with her Louisiana plantations. She sold Belmont in January 1887 for approximately $54,000, a fraction of what the estate had cost to build and furnish. The land development company that purchased the property began subdividing the sprawling acreage into one of Nashville's earliest planned residential neighborhoods. The mansion itself, however, proved too impressive to simply tear down. In 1890, 2 women from Philadelphia, Susan L. Herron and Ida E. Hood, purchased Belmont Mansion and 13 surrounding acres with the intention of opening a school for young women. Modeling their institution on the women's colleges of the American Northeast, they added a new building to the back of the mansion facing the newly created Wedgwood Avenue, and on September 4, 1890, Belmont College for Young Women opened its doors. The transformation from private residence to educational institution required significant changes to the interior. Upstairs bedrooms, the formal dining room, and the billiard room were divided into dormitory rooms. That same year, Belmont College merged with Nashville's Ward Seminary to form Ward Belmont College, which became the first junior college in the South to receive full accreditation from the Southern Association of Colleges and Secondary Schools. In 1951, the Tennessee Baptist Convention purchased Ward Belmont and developed it into a 4-year coeducational college, Belmont College. The institution continued to grow, adding graduate programs and eventually becoming Belmont University. In 2007, Belmont University separated from the Tennessee Baptist Convention to operate independently. Throughout all of these transitions, from mansion to school to college to university, the core of Adelicia and Joseph's original creation endured. The Belmont Mansion Association, a private nonprofit historic preservation organization, was established in 1972 to maintain the house as a museum, preserve its collection, and share the story of the estate and the people who lived and worked there. Though its past may be complicated and rooted in a dark chapter of American history, the beauty of the mansion and the stories of the hands that built it live on. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. What did you think about Belmont? Let me know down below in the comments section. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.